Okay, thanks so much. All right, so yeah, this is going to be informal. We just have a few slides to show what we're doing here. Um, share our screen real quick. And so this is, we are the ACRL Instruction Section Building Virtual Community Task Force. We have been working on this for the past couple of years, and we got extended to a third year. Basically, our charge is to build community and give more professional development activities and more community building activities, both online and in person, because the instruction section has gone almost completely virtual. And so there are some goals we have with this. Sorry, let me see real quick. Basic goals for this brown bag pilot project. Someone suggested this in a feedback forum a while back, and I wish I remember who it was because it was a really good idea, I think, and I hope this takes off. So this is supposed to be small group discussions so that we can have a more intimate environment. Brown bag means, we can eat lunch during this if we want to. Oh, and Aaron and Claire, feel free to just pipe up and add anything if I'm forgetting anything or if you have thoughts on this, because we've all been working really hard on this. And we want to create opportunities for instruction section members to suggest and moderate discussions on different topics. And the bigger charge of our community is, or our task force, is more community building and professional development activities outside of conferences, and also for librarians who can't always travel to conferences, because I know it's an issue because of time, money, and other factors. So that's part of why the instruction section in general has moved to more of a virtual model. And one thing that I'd like to, personally do for the future, I know it's not really lunchtime for all of us. We've got at least 6 different time zones in the US, so it's sort of not balanced between Eastern and Pacific, and don't want to leave Alaskan and Hawaiian librarians out and stuff like that. So that's one thing we might look at in the future. And I know there's different types of academic libraries, obviously, community college and big university. I work at a small liberal arts library, and even within those, there's different types of libraries. So it's great learning from people who work in all these different types of libraries. But if we want to, or if IS members want to suggest specific meetings for just these specific types of libraries to talk about more specific instruction ideas or challenges, then that's a future thing we might look at as well. And so for today's discussion, we're trying to keep it simple. We have a Padlet that we can use for people to type in. If you want to do it that way, you can use chat as well. I think we don't have that many people in this discussion. I think we are keeping it smaller. I spread a really wide net, as did my committee members or my fellow task force members, because we were afraid we wouldn't get enough people. But it has seemed to be popular. About 70 people registered for this one because I didn't know how to put a cap on it. But I don't think we'll get quite that many people. So our discussion moderation guidelines are basically, if you unmute your mic and talk, everybody's free to talk. Just be sure to mute your mic if you're not talking. And if you are going to talk out loud, just say your name before you talk, so we can just try to get to know each other a little better and know who's talking. I'll pull up our Padlet in just a second, and that's good if you just want to type in your thoughts on there, and we can kind of have a chat discussion going there, as well as our verbal discussion. The article we're looking at for today is this article by Amanda Folk, which is a really cool article, and it's, I don't know if everyone got a chance to look through it. Hopefully you did. It's right here, Drawing on Students' Funds of Knowledge. Sorry, let me pull up the PDF real quick. So we'll just have that to look at. And it's a very interesting article about pre-existing knowledge and using that to help students, especially first year and minority students, but other students as well. And my Mac's giving me a bit of trouble, but this should come up here just in a second. So just to show you guys what that looks like, and there's that link there too if you want to look into it. So I guess I will pull up our Padlet as well, and we can just kind of go from there. I think you guys should be able to see the chat and the Padlet. Sorry, this is kind of going over each other, but I'll try to move it around. And let me see if I can get Zoom share. Okay, so sorry, this is a little bit busy right now. We're learning as we go. Claire and Aaron, am I forgetting anything, or is there anything else we need to hit on?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you think of anything, or if anyone thinks of anything, then feel free to just say your name and what you think about it. And we'll just kind of go through these discussion questions. And if y'all think of anything else that you'd like to bring up, I think it's pretty easy to add something on the Padlet. If you have trouble with that, just let me know. I've used this a few times for instruction sections. It's good for students who are kind of shy about talking out loud, and sometimes librarians are like that too. I can be like that too sometimes. So this was just kind of our fun question here, what people are eating for lunch. I know it's not quite a lunchtime for everyone, but we've got a nice array here. I like sardines, Qdoba, grilled vegetables, and watermelon. Oh man, a lot of you guys are being healthier than I am. I did bring like tuna salad today. So it's just, we're trying to build a little bit of community here and not make it like super serious. So that was just like our fun little question. Let's see, just to ask a verbal question. If you weren't able to read the whole article, I did read it, but it was a while back. Did anyone have any thoughts on that they'd like to share? Okay, if not, yeah, if you think of something later on, and sorry, I've got chat up here too. I mean, yeah, I didn't do it. Oh, thank you so much for putting the Padlet link in there, Claire. That's kind of good. Yeah, if you didn't get through the whole thing, that's fine. It's a little bit long, but it's very interesting. I read it, but as I said a while back, we'll just go over some of the things. If you didn't get to read it before this session, it's definitely worth a skim or like a read when you do get a chance. And we just did these little thumbs up and thumbs down to make polling simpler. So first little question we had was, how do you encourage students to use their pre-existing knowledge? And people are saying this is valuable. I think most people would think it's valuable. And we can do a thing where people aren't anonymous here, but we'll try that out next time. If you guys think that this is, it's better to have, I use anonymous for students because they're shy, but we're professionals. We're not going to be that shy about it. So next time we can put people's name in there so we kind of know where they're coming from. And I don't mean to just be like blabbing on. So if anyone else wants to talk, just chime in, and I will mute myself. Yeah, so we've got some interesting lessons here. And yeah, just asking students at the beginning of the session to gauge where they're coming from. And yeah, it's super dependent on the assignment. And one of the other things I was thinking about, like the article talks about basically a lot of first year students, maybe like their first generation students as well, and they're using their knowledge from before they back when they were in high school, or just their lives outside of college. And like one student was a student athlete, and they wanted to investigate, well, why are some of my classmates doing homework in study hall and why are some of them not? And that's like an interesting sociological issue, but it's also something that they were observing, in real life. Why were some of their fellow student athletes doing homework and why are they not? So that's going to be kind of different from, an engineering topic or biology topic where they're doing something that's a bit more, technical. Yeah, and someone was saying, if you want to put your name in there, that's totally fine too. The light of changing demographics in higher ed, diversity is very important. And yeah, I like the idea of having a brainstorming session too. A whiteboard is so awesome. Like what topic they'd want to look at, and yeah, depending on what they're doing. I think something that is very important, what search tools they've used before. In my experience, sometimes it's weird. Like if you do a lot of one-shots, then sometimes students are seniors and they've never had a one-shot before, and sometimes they've had about 1,000,000 one-shots. So let me make sure I got this going here. And I'm sorry, maybe we've got too many options here, so feel free to give feedback on this too. Let's see what we got here. And totally feel free to chime in. I'm sorry, I don't want this to be the Liz hour, but I'm trying to look through these different things. And if anyone's having trouble like with their audio, just say it in chat here and Gina will help you out. Okay, cool. And we'll keep looking through these. Yeah, research topics relevant to themselves, personal interest, and kind of what I was talking about like in the beginning about different schools have different requirements. I work at a great book school, so I think it's kind of limiting. Like you have to write about Milton or Dante or whatever, and you can draw from your personal experience with that somewhat, I guess, but it's kind of like use the primary source and nothing else, which is cool in a way, but I don't like it in some ways. And a lot of other schools are, with their writing classes, 101, 102, English 101 and 102, they're doing more, you guys have, a lot of librarians have more options to look into students' personal knowledge. And so I think that's awesome. Like service learning projects, sorry, what was this? Working with professors to design research assignments. And I think that was Erin's question. Forgive me if it was Claire's or another person on our committee, but this is a really good question. And service learning projects, that sounds like an awesome way to work with the professors. I know that if you want to say in chat, like, you can also use, what Claire said, you can add your own topic to Padlet with the pink plus sign at the bottom right side of the screen. So we can add into our questions as well. Let's see, I'll try to stop here. Okay, cool. I'm just reading through these. These are so interesting. This person, this librarian was working in Latinx theater, and that's a very interesting thing. Like people who are students who are white or not Latino don't want to put their perspective in there. So sometimes some students' pre-existing knowledge, I guess, is better. Not better, but more valid. Of course, if you're Latinx, then you're going to know more about that experience than students who are white or just not Latino. Pre-activation activities to draw on people's experiences and help them encourage connections. Yeah, and sometimes you get to design the assignment and sometimes you don't. Does anyone want to talk about, like, expand on this in da 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 in the verbal chat? You can feel free. And again, if you're having mic issues, then
Liz,
yes.
this is Erin, and I wanted to know, can I ask a question to one of the, concerning one of the comments on the
Yes,
tablet?
absolutely.
So somebody wrote they worked with the professor to design the assignment on the Latinx theater class. And I guess my question is, did the professor, like, were they consciously trying to draw on the students' pre-existing knowledge, or, that's what I'm curious about, or just curious about that. I'll shut up now.
That's a great question. Somebody might have said something in chat. Okay, Sarah, that was your comment. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I've suffered from not having a mic. Oh, yeah, and thank you, Anne, for doing the article again. I know we're a little bit disorganized here. Um, so sorry, Erin, could you repeat that question again, or the gist of it?
I just wanted to know if the professor, to Sarah's comment about the Latinx theater class, I was just wondering if the professor had actually said, yeah, I'm trying to draw on the students' funds of knowledge, or maybe didn't use that terminology exactly. That's all. I was just wondering if the professor had really had that in mind. Okay, so we have a reply from Sarah. I'd sign in. Okay, so the faculty member did explicitly want the students to draw on their own experiences. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's just curious about that. Thanks.
I don't know, I'm typing. But yeah, I just hate when the professors can't come. I think it's great when they can. I know it's just sometimes they have conflicts, but that's cool that the professor was involving you, Sarah. Yeah, and I see what you're saying, Claire. I know it just, I guess to me it seems kind of rote. Um, yeah, just those big topics. It's hard to, I guess, like, climate change is so big, in my opinion, or just those real hot topic things like, oh, healthcare or abortion. It might be hard for them sometimes to be so personal with that. Yeah, no, that's a great point. They're being asked to recapitulate their own papers, recapitulate, if I'm saying that right. And yeah, Aaron, I totally agree. Like, when people can choose their own topics instead of picking from a list, which I think maybe, I don't know, in y'all's opinion, do professors do that? Like, when you're working on those 101 or 102 courses, or any courses, do your professors give students like a list of hot topics usually, or is it more pick your own topic, you guys?
This is Claire Lobdell. I was going to just say that with a lot of our English 101 classes, our professors have the students pick a topic that's like somehow inspired by one of their readings, you know, as long as they can like tangentially relate the topic to one of the course readings, it can count. And sometimes I find it helpful in classes to like give examples of research that I've been interested in or things that I've been doing, and the ways that, like, you know, I've connected research to my own life. Like, I've been giving the example recently of like, there was this place that my family and I used to canoe when we were little in it, and there were it was through this swamp where back in the mid 1800s there was this gang of like horse rustlers that were like really active in that area, and how I got really interested in that and like, you know, wanted to learn more about these people and how they were like active for so long in their like criminal enterprise. And so like, you know, I was inspired by this area that I grew up in to do research. And I think sometimes like walking students through a narrative example like that, where, you know, you can talk about how you've been inspired by something in your own life to, you know, to look more deeply into that can model for them how to do that in their lives. I'm going to just mute myself again.
I think that's really interesting, and that's like a topic that I think would pique my interest if I were a freshman, because it's just something you don't think about every day. And yeah, I think Marge has a good point. Like sometimes students are just like, I don't know. So focusing on a topic can be helpful. So it just sort of depends on the students. Um, yeah, does anybody else have thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is Erin Mooney again. I don't I mean, I don't have any follow up to what Claire Lobdell was saying, but I think her suggestion was really great. But I do find that when the students are definitely more motivated when they can pick their own topics. Either that or they're totally lost, one or the other, or both, because they don't know what to do. And as someone said here, they're focused, more worried about the research and writing and not the topic.
I wanted to, this is Claire Lobdell again, and I wanted to just add one other thought. So one of our English 101 faculty here, and I teach at a community college, one of our English 101 faculty, you know, he assigns students like a sort of a general research paper, but one of the sources that he requires is like a first-hand account or a first-hand perspective. So it doesn't, the student can include their own, they can include like a interview that has been done with someone else, or they can do an interview themselves. And I think that can be a really helpful way to get students to think about like their own lived experience, and the lived experience in their communities is to like encourage them to do, to interview someone, whether it's like a, you know, a neighbor or, you know, someone at a local business or something that relates to their topic. And that can, I think, is also a great way to get students thinking about how they can be part of the scholarly conversation, because like you know, if you're doing an interview with someone that is like original primary research, you know, and it can be a great way of like bringing in that who is an authority, who how do you become part of that scholarly conversation?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I know we asked a lot of questions, but you guys have like such good replies. Yeah, someone was saying here, like, working with professors. Yeah, and I like this reply. Yeah, how to revamp library instructions for core classes and working with the program coordinator. That's awesome when you can do that. Um, Helping design the assignment. That's awesome when people can do that. And it's just like kind of captain obvious to say. Um, but let's see. Personal experiences. Yeah, starting with students' pre-existing knowledge, creating buy-in. I think that's, yeah, doing what Folk is talking about really helps with that. Oh, thanks for linking to the Folk articles, you guys. Um, yeah, no, I like this point that in high school, that some high school teachers uh, don't really focus on the students' expertise, and that's kind of a gripe I have sometimes with my with the university I work at. It's like uh, it's so liberal arts, but sometimes it's like we don't use secondary sources at all. It's just primary sources, and like I guess that's a way for students to get their own opinions in there, but just when they get to be upperclassmen and they're researching something they're interested in, then that's I think they just blossom more, so to speak. But yeah, I like the point I think Marge made that sometimes like first year students, they don't know what they're doing. They're just intimidated by research. So that the kind of giving them a limited amount of research options can be good. Let's see, first year experiences. Wish I'd known about this earlier. Yeah, I wish I'd known about this earlier too. Um, yeah, I'll just let other people read through this. I don't mean to keep talking so much, but does anyone else have any, like, we can look through these other questions too. Does anyone have anything they want to mention from the discussion we've had so far?
Yeah, this is Martin Crabtree speaking. Kind of an indirect approach I take to this with particularly our second semester freshman English course. The course has a final major research project that they have to do, and students often struggle with the topics and things like that for that final thing. And what I have them do quite often is think about the general idea of what they're doing so they don't come in completely cold. But once they've thought about it a little bit, we step into, I usually use ProQuest Central for this as a database. Throw in your search terms, get the results up, and after kind of narrowing things down, if the date range matters or something like that, get into the subject listing. And what I have them do, if ProQuest, I really like how they do this, is that you can include and exclude subject areas. And I have them go through reflexively. I tell them, go through the list, and if you see something where you're pointing at it before your brain even registers what you're seeing, you click include or exclude, depending on what it is, and just run through the list real quickly, pull up your results. It takes the 100,000 results they started with down to something more manageable. And very often students are like, wow, that's kind of interesting. Oh, I kind of like that. And it really helps them kind of focus in on things. So that's kind of, how I take their personal interest in things and kind of say, sort of like as the article talks about, here's the conversation. Now, which pieces of this conversation interest you the most or really do not interest you? Kind of focus on that and see what the conversation's like and kind of take it from there. And it seems to work pretty well.
This is Marie Gruber. I'm at University of Northern Iowa, and I just wanted to respond to that. Martin, I really like that idea of kind of engaging students looking at, how do different disciplines maybe talk about the same topic. I work with students in social work quite often, and they typically have a very good sense for a broad topic area that they want to research or a population, for example, but beyond that, they don't know how to narrow the topic, so that's a challenge. And there are some real disciplinary differences. I also saw in the Padlet, there was someone who said, this is kind of hard in the sciences sometimes because pulling in a personal background with a science topic can be challenging. So I definitely, as a science librarian as well, I definitely appreciate some of the disciplinary differences that may make it easier or harder to pull in those funds of knowledge.
Well, Martin Crabtree again. I'm at Mercer County Community College in New Jersey for everybody, but being community college, my focus is kind of, freshman, sophomore type stuff. So it's a little easier in that respect. Sometimes you get into higher levels of things. The research gets more focused and detailed and things like that. I guess I'm lucky in that respect. I can kind of keep it kind of broad and things like that as well.
This is Claire again from Greenfield Community College in Western Mass. I just wanted to give a couple of examples of how I've seen some of our science faculty helping students draw on funds of knowledge. So we had a undergraduate research symposium this spring where students presented research projects that they did. And we had one student do a chemistry project. He works for, I think it's Yankee Candle, and you know, was like his company provides him money to, or you know, pays for him to study here, and he did a research project about like how different like chemical additives can affect like the melting point and like some other factors of like wax chemistry. And then we have a bio faculty member who has students do semester-long research projects with some of the forest areas around here, and the students can like choose a plot of their own and you know, choose something that particularly interests them. So there's one student who wanted to go into forestry, so he was looking at like the health of like this of one particular tree species throughout this chunk of forest. And you know, even if it's not, I think even if students aren't necessarily working on their own lived experience, like the more you can bring in their environment or you know, provide examples of, you know, researchers out there who are, say, you know, doing research on you know, water health in their water safety in their communities, or things like that. You know, things where you know, their interest in their particular line of research is, you know, inspired by where they live, or you know, their other aspects of their environment. That can always be helpful.
Claire, those are great examples. I really like that idea of sort of the community-based learning being pulled in. And, you know, a lot of our students are from our state, and so our area is their community, and they're still learning about our particular geographic place more specifically. But I like that sort of place-based idea. There's a lot of, my comment earlier was about, on the Padlet, was about service learning, and there's a lot of research in service learning on sort of assets-based approach and place-based institutions. And I think there's a lot of value to, we know from the research, there's a lot of value to student learning of this project-based learning or community-based learning approach. So I try to incorporate the information literacy pieces into those community engagement or service learning projects. And that's been kind of interesting, and lots of disciplinary ways to do that.
Yeah, I like that. And just drawing from students' experiences, even with science. I like classes here where it's kind of cool. They get to go pick an animal and go kind of do a research project and observe them at the zoo and stuff like that. So that kind of gets a little more personal, something that just something that they're interested in. And yeah, just like I like the idea of a local state thing. I used to try to do extra credit seminars when I worked at a little community college, and we had so many student athletes, and there was one student who, you know, some of them were interested in basketball type, you know, topics. And I just remember this one kid was like, really, she was a barrel racer, rodeo person, and she had strong feelings about PETA. So she got into that, and just something like from their own lives and their own opinions. And that kind of ties into like, I like what whoever put this here, that students are researchers too. Like, they're not just blank slates that come in, they do have interests. So I think that's a really important thing to remember. Let's see, idea that, and that kind of ties into that. Yeah, if anyone wants to go back to a different topic, but are there any other strategies? We've kind of touched on that, like engaging first generations and minority students. Does anybody have any particular strategies? There's a couple good ones here, or if you guys want to expound on that, if these were yours, how to kind of involve them in this scholarly conversation. That's cool what Chelsea said there. Like their audience isn't just their professor. And that's a good way to look at it. Sorry, I'm scrolling around too much. Open pedagogy. Yeah, like students are just kind of trying to, you know, fulfill what they need to do to get a good grade a lot of times, but emphasizing that they're part of the scholarly conversation is important too. And I think that's what a lot of y'all have emphasized here. Let's see. Oh, yeah, feel free to add anything. I know I'm kind of jumping around, or if you have something to add about these other topics or anything else you've thought of. I think it was Chelsea here. Can you talk a little bit more or expound, if you don't mind, about the opportunities that open pedagogy creates? Pedagogy. Okay, Chelsea's gonna type about that, and yeah, I know. Like, I just want to keep this flexible if people don't have mics. That does not always work. Um, this is kind of a little bit more nitty gritty, but another question we had here: does anybody have examples of learning objectives or lesson plans that you think have done a good job incorporating these ideas? I know. Okay, sorry. Uh, okay, we've got an answer from Claire here. Wikipedia page. Can we use the next class? Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I'm kind of taken from that is that like they're moving from class to class. It's not just getting through one class and then the next class is a totally different thing, just a totally different thing to jump through. Yeah, and service learning stuff with an outside client. I like that a lot for business students, or just any kind of service learning thing. I work mainly with business students with that, but that's helpful for them to get that real world thing. Oh yeah, editing Wikipedia. That's cool. Yeah, fixing up Wikipedia pages. I've never tried doing that personally, but I think that's cool. Wikipedia edit-a-thons. Yeah, that's cool. Do you guys do it where it's like there's something that they have a personal interest in, or just kind of pick an academic topic?
This is Anne Marie. We're at University of Northern Iowa. One of our librarians got a grant from, I think it was from Wikipedia, to do a series of edit-a-thons. They were all related to diversity topics. And so one was focused on, women represented in particular disciplines. One was focused on people of color, and so on. So each one had a diversity theme. And it was outside of class, but faculty could engage classes in doing the projects. So.
No, that's very cool. Yeah, and yeah, I think that could be applicable across different places. Like, just sometimes it's easy to think of students as monolithic. I think like at my school, like somebody did a survey where they're like the most conservative student body in the U.S., which I don't know if I totally agree with that. They are very conservative. Like it's a Catholic school, but they're just so very different. And there's homeschool students and there's international students, and people have different ideas. And so that's I think diversity is just something that we all need to think about. Again, that's obvious, but yeah, like just it's interesting to hear from other people at different schools with different type of diverse students. So that's all really neat. Wikipedia-a-thon is a cool thing to think about for sure. Claire had this example here. Oh, cool, awesome. You have a link even. Primary sources and primary research in their daily life. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I want to look at that.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, this is Erin Mooney again, and I'm at Emory University, and we hosted a Wikipedia edit-a-thon this past spring, and I was involved in it for the first time. But before we did that, we did a practice session to just sort of play around with it. And I had never edited Wikipedia before, and I ended up editing an article on a highway. Okay, me. Editing an article on a highway. I know nothing about highways except that I try to avoid them. And a highway that runs straight up the middle of the U.S. from Texas to all the way to North Dakota. And actually, it was. I got all into it, and I contacted all the people at the U.S. Highway Division or something, and so I was engaged in it in a way that I normally would never have been. I think because I was going to publish something on Wikipedia, and people would be able to read it. I'm not sure anybody will ever read it, but it was quite a great experience in that way.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and if it's relevant to your life, and like is it I-35? Just out of curiosity.
No, it wasn't I-35. No.
Oh, okay. I have strong personal feelings about I-35. As probably everybody does about their local highways. But yeah, no, it's cool. And I think like to emphasize with students, there's probably a way bigger chance that people will read things that they edit on Wikipedia than just a paper they're doing for freshman lit. Not that that's not important too, but that's a cool idea. Let's see. I'll just give everyone a chance to. I don't want to yap too much, but is there anything else anyone wants to add to that topic, assessment, or different? I know we've got so many questions here, and we've really got a lot of cool discussion topics. But yeah, I'll just mute it again. I'll mute myself again. And does anyone have other stuff to add just on any of this? And you can use chat or Padlet or talking. Oh, I like this that Chelsea wrote here too. I don't know if we talked about that. Something about learn about something for their own fun. That's pretty cool. Oh, great question. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. And yeah, you should all be able to just go into this Padlet later. And I think I will make another one for tomorrow's session, just so this doesn't get too busy, but give them access to this, tomorrow's folks, just so they can see what you guys came up with. And then I can share that with everyone too. I think. I'm new to like ACRL sharing stuff, but I think Gina can help me out with that, or one of our other lovely ACRL employees. But yeah, this should be open for you guys. I won't delete it or anything. Yeah, totally. I want to go back and look at this stuff too. We got some great ideas here. All right, and I guess this is just, just a note for future reference. Because we're trying to build community, and I think like Aaron and Claire and I were like we're the panelists, so I guess that makes sense. We're like trying to lead the discussion. We've gotten more familiar with this. We also know each other a little better because we've been working together for the past couple of years. So I want people to get comfortable talking to each other during these, and I know like mics and cameras don't always work, so we've got a lot of good participation, and I just didn't make everyone non-anonymous. I didn't want to make it like stressful for anyone. So if you want to be anonymous, that's okay. But if when we give out that survey, if you have like any feedback at all, good, bad, we we'd love to hear it just to improve these things. So if you think like people shouldn't be anonymous, or I'd prefer it if people did have cameras on, or just anything like that. Like I don't want to. Again, we want to keep this like very casual, and we want people to be comfortable. So that's why we're trying to give people a different ways to contribute. You can talk, you can do chat, you can do Padlet. I know this has been a little bit clunky and hopefully not too confusing, but yeah, any feedback you want to give on that. So that's just a quick aside. But yeah, we're getting down to like the last 7 minutes or so. So again, I'll just open the floor again for anything you guys think we missed out on, or anything. I know we didn't get to all of these, but we just got so many great suggestions. And again, like this Padlet will be here, so you guys can come back to it. But anything else anyone wants to touch on before we close out the session?
One thing this is Erin Mooney again. One thing I wanted to say is I noticed that the question about assessment only had one response. And I don't know if that says something about the struggle that a lot of people have with assessing, library instruction. But anyway, just wanted to point that out.
No, that's a good point. I know we should probably put that more at the top of the discussion because it came on later. But yeah, I struggle with assessment. I think it's pretty common. Does anyone have any other thoughts on that? That's a great. And that might be something for another day. if you have suggestions for that's another thing in our little I'll go ahead and post our survey thing again so you guys can take it. Again, we'd appreciate any feedback, and you don't have to answer all these questions. They're optional, but let's see. They should be right here. Copy. I'll put this here, and oh crud. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Let me see if I can get it. Come on, computer. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay. Can you guys try that and see if it opens up for you now? Why is it doing that? Forgive me. I will try to put that on the Padlet if I can't figure that out. I'll mute myself. If anyone else has any other things to talk about, or like, we're finishing up. I know you guys have places to be, but let me try to fix this real quick. And if anyone else has any, if anyone else has any thoughts, just and feel free to add to the Padlet later if you have anything else. Let me see. But yeah, any last minute thoughts, and I will get this survey fixed and get it to you guys sometime. So thanks for bearing with me here. Thanks for coming, Chelsea.